already, please do so and select the bell for notifications. I want to first really quickly thank all of my awesome Patreon members who help make it possible to create videos like this. And if you're interested in supporting me on Patreon, just go to patreon.com/organizedplannerchic. Now, I know this is not the type of content that I normally publish. I normally publish videos on planning, journaling, junk journaling, artistic things, and hauls associated with all of that. But in light of the recent school shooting, I really thought it would be a good opportunity for me to come on here as a parent who has homeschooled in the past, um, and just talk about the possibility of doing that. I know that a lot of times when this happens, that parents get really, well, are always concerned about the safety of their kids, but they have sometimes this desire to homeschool their kids, but they feel like they can't do it. And there's a lot of different reasons why people feel that way. Sometimes it's because they're working parents, both parents are working, they don't see financially how they can do it, or it's a single parent, and single parents sometimes feel like they can't do it. I gotta work. And sometimes people feel like they can't do it because they don't have a degree. Maybe they feel like I'm not smart enough, or I just don't have the skills or qualifications, and they may feel like what their state requires they can't do. But there's a lot of different reasons why people feel like they can't. And I know that can be very distressing if you're in this situation where you're feeling really prompted. You're really feeling like this is what I need to do. It's the best thing I can do, the safest thing that I can do for my children, but I don't see how I can do it. So I wanted to let everyone know that if you're interested in doing that, you can. And I also want to let parents know who still feel like they can't, who still choose not to do that, that there is no judgment here. Everyone has to do what is best for them and what they feel like they can do. And I also wanted to share that I remember in some past shootings, I have friends who who felt like, okay, after all this, we've decided it's either homeschooling or private school. And while private schools have a much lower incidence, have much fewer incidents of violence in school, they do still have it. The recent one that we just experienced was in a private school. So your kids are always going to be the safest when they're with you. And of course, they can't always be with you 100% of the time. I would say in most cases, and even if they are with you, sometimes things can still happen to them, but at least you can try to protect them when you're there. And so they're always going to be the safest in your care. So let's talk about how you can actually do this. So I did homeschool. Let me say that first, as someone who does have experience with homeschooling. I have two kids. One went to public high school and graduated number two in his class and went on to college and is now getting ready to start a doctoral program in the fall. But I also have a daughter who, when I left my government job to run my business full time, asked me to homeschool her for high school, right when she was finishing eighth grade. And I had never planned on doing that, but I couldn't say no to that. And she also actually graduated early and went, and part of her college was paid for through a volleyball scholarship. So I have experience with both public school and homeschooling. I didn't homeschool my kids when they were little, but I did homeschool preschool for my son. So, but all of the rest of my experience was with high school, which I think is where a lot of parents get concerned that they can't meet those needs, but definitely across the board on all the ages. So, the first thing that you want to do if you're interested in homeschooling is find out what is required in your state, because each state is different. Some of them are very liberal and some of them are very stringent. Now, I was from Oklahoma. I live in Arizona now, but I homeschooled while I was in Oklahoma. And I don't know if it's changed now, but then Oklahoma was the most liberal state in the union for homeschooling. And so there, the only requirements, again, you want to double check this if you live in Oklahoma now, what the requirements are for sure now. But at the time, the only requirements were basically three. Although they're important, there were three basic ones. One, you had to have at least 180 days of classroom time, classroom instruction, 180 days. They could be any 180 days. You could create whatever schedule you want. Some years for my daughter, we had a year-round schedule. Other times we had the regular school schedule that mostly matched public school, and then we had the summers off, so it varied. I could change. You could say, well, we're not going to have school today, but then we need to have it this other day because we have to have 180 days. So again, there in Oklahoma, you had to have 180 days of classroom instruction. You had to take attendance, of course, to prove that, and that kind of goes with the 180 days. And you had to provide them with an equivalent education. And you guys, I'm in my car and the sun is going down over there, so it's a little bright, so I apologize for that. So yeah, you had to have 180 days. Let me see if I can turn my camera to get that sun out for you guys. There, that's better. I might have to hold it. I'll have to hold it. So I apologize for that because the sun is going crazy. Okay, so I regret. Sorry, I apologize. So 180 days of classroom instruction. You had to provide an equivalent education to what they would have gotten if they had gone to public schools. And I guess that was really it. The 3 was taking attendance. So 180 days of classroom instruction. They had to have equivalent education, and you had to, of course, take attendance to prove that. And the only time anyone really questioned that was if, let's say, there was a neighbor or someone who saw kids who felt like these people over here are not homeschooling, then they could call, the city, call the school district or whatever and say, I don't think they're really homeschooling. And then a truancy officer would come and verify. So in that instance, then the parents, whoever is doing the homeschooling, provide the curriculum. They had to show what curriculum they were using, and they had to show that the calendar and the schedule that they planned for their students. And they had to be able to look and see that they were, actually teaching what they should probably be learning at that age. And that was really it. So I think I covered those. That education, and then if asked, you the what do you okay, but there are other states where you had to have more. So some states you had to have, I think, up to a master's degree in education. Other states, and maybe some of those as well, you had to provide the curriculum in advance. I think when I was in Colorado, I had a friend there, and I believe she had to turn in the curriculum or the syllabus or whatever the plan was, or maybe wasn't sure if it was the whole school year or the semester is required. Look that up and find out. And so since I didn't live in a state that had a really, really stringent one, I still believe, so I'm going to cover that here in a moment. I still believe there's always a way that you can still do that. It might not necessarily be you teaching the course, but whoever is teaching the material has to fit those requirements. So you just want to know what is required in your state, and 99, if not 100 requirements, it just might not be in the way that you expect. So let's say if it required an advanced degree, maybe there was less of you doing the instruction, more of someone else, whether it was online, whether it was in a co-op, which we'll talk about in a moment, that kind of thing, which those are all really good things, by the way, to help you with that, because homeschooling really isn't an individual thing. It's really a community. And we'll touch on that as well. So you want to find out. Now, the easiest way to find out what is required is to go to a homeschool convention. And this is the time to go. So be sure and look online if you be available to finish this processing today, then which takes maybe about an hour after I finish speaking. Then let me see if I can move my camera so I don't have to hold it and it doesn't keep shaking for you guys. No, I think I got to keep it over here for right now. Okay, so the easiest way to find out the requirements for your state for homeschooling is to go to the homeschool convention. At least where I was from in Oklahoma, again, I don't know what it is here in Arizona, but in Oklahoma, it was every April. And it was in the two biggest cities, Oklahoma City and Tulsa, and they had the convention on two different weekends so that people could come if they were working. Like my daughter played club volleyball, and the one in Oklahoma City was always the weekend of the regional conference, so we would go to the one in Tulsa. And there they cover all of that. They cover what the requirements are for your state. They even cover what your protection and provisions are federally, because there's an organization, I can't remember the name of it right now, it starts with an H, but there's an organization that fights for your rights on the federal level as well. But they tell you all of that. You meet parents at the homeschool convention. Again, it's every year, that tell you what they do, how they work it out. Because I'm telling you, some of those parents are working parents, some of those parents are single parents, some of those parents thought that they couldn't do anything at all because they didn't have, a degree. Yeah, so you find out all of those things. You find out what co-ops are there. And so co-ops are where families come together to help each other homeschool. It's not a school. It's not a big group, although my daughter did, so I did all of her homeschool teaching for high school until she needed, I did, gosh, I can't even think now. I did physical science at home, but once she had to do biology, I was like, I don't want to do a lab anymore. After I taught her geometry, I was like, I don't want to teach math anymore. So there was this organization called ECHO, and at ECHO, they didn't call themselves a co-op. They just offered a number of different classes to help parents supplement their homeschool education. So I didn't want to do labs anymore. I didn't want to do math anymore. So she took biology. She took algebra 2, for example, at that co-op or at that place. They said they weren't a co-op. So because it was more than just a few families, but it was different families coming in and out. So it wasn't a school where everybody went and, all the fourth graders together and all that stuff. It's just they offer certain classes and you could use it. So there's groups like that. But the co-ops are normally a small collection of families. They help each other. There could be, it depends. They're all different. Some kids might get all of their instruction through that co-op. And usually, even with ECHO, the parents have to help a little bit, like you have so many volunteer hours. And you can do that any kind of way. So if you're a parent who works odd hours, works at a hospital, for example, nurse, doctor, whatever, you could work out hours that you can do behind the scenes to volunteer to help and all of that. So those groups are listed and they're usually represented at the homeschool convention as well. At the homeschool convention is curriculum, and you can buy curriculum there, but you can also get curriculum from parents who no longer need that curriculum. When I was homeschooling, there was a company that had a textbook company, and they also had a homeschooling section. And at that section, I bought some courseware. And then there was a mom I knew from church that when her kids finished high school, which she homeschooled all the way from preschool to senior in high school, she gave me all of her curriculum. So, you can do that. And then when I finished homeschooling, I posted on Facebook and said, hey, I'm finished with all this homeschool curriculum. Whoever first come, first serve. And people were on there quick. And a lady came and picked up all that curriculum from me. So, yeah. So yeah, you find everything you need to know, tips and tricks, how to address different things. Yeah. So that's the best way to find out what the requirements are in your state, how to go about it, whether you're single parent, working parents, just don't know what to do. There's workshop after workshop after workshop. It does cost, but it's a nominal fee. And you can also apply, if you register early, you can apply to work the event and get in free. And you can also apply for scholarships. So, and then, yeah, you can reach out to people. Even if you can't go, you can get the information. You can just Google and get information for co-ops in my area. And so also there is public school that you can do online and do at home. Now, each state or each school district might have different requirements on who can use that, but that is available. And so a person goes online, just kind of like people had to do during COVID. They have instructors for different classes. Somebody grades their stuff, tests them, all of that. They act as their testing proctors, all those different things. you can do that, and that is free, but they're doing it at home. So that's also an option. There's also, if you can afford it, there's also course with complete courses from online homeschools that you can use, and you pay, and they do it just like the K through 12, as an example of the public school court education you can get from home. Well, they have private ones as well, and you can pay for that, and someone does all of that. So there's so many different ways. You can join homeschool groups on Facebook. I'm sure there's probably some on Instagram, the different community groups, and find out what they do. And you can do that. You're going to connect with families when you go to the convention. You're going to connect with families when you look online and join different groups. And so this is the time to connect with families and get to know people if you're interested in doing this in time for the fall school year. So let's say you work full time, you work long hours, you don't, you're like, I don't know how I can really do much of anything. You can connect with some families and find out, get to know some people, people that you get to be able to try and trust or develop relationships so that you can trust. Because when you take your kids to school, you just don't really know what's going on there. Yeah, even in private schools, because I went to public and private school, and let me tell you, it's stuff happening at public and private school. This stuff happening. Your kids are learning stuff at school, whether you think they are or not. They are, because you're like, oh, everything's under control when they're in the bathroom, when they're waiting in line. I mean, there's stuff happening. So they're safest when they're with a group and with people that so you can do this. So I'm telling you, you can do this, but it does take some planning. It does take organizing. It is not easy if you're doing some of the teaching yourself, especially if you have strong-willed kids, if you have kids who you're taking out of school and they don't want that to happen in their lives now. I mean, it'll be a transition. It will be work. You're not doing it because it's easy. You're doing it because it's safe for your kids and you know what they're learning, and they do better. Generally speaking, homeschool kids do better with standardized testing and on the ACT and SAT, even though I know all that kind of is changing with colleges, they do better because they're getting so much individualized one-on-one instruction. And that makes a difference. My daughter did good her first time on the ACT. She wasn't worried. She went and took her test, and she, like I said, she went to college. She got a volleyball scholarship, so you can do it. And my son excelled as well, and he went to a public high school. So homeschooling doesn't take away from that. Now, when sometimes people think that, oh, they're concerned about socialization and then being able to do things. Kids got opportunity to do all those things. One went to public school and one was homeschooled. So you can. So just an example. So there are homeschool clubs for everything. There are homeschool clubs for athletics, for choir, for music. They do cost money. Although they don't normally in high school, they do cost something. In high school, you got to at least buy your basketball shoes, because I played basketball in high school, your track school shoes, because I ran track and all that. You have to pay some things, but you do have to pay for those if it's a homeschool club. You do. But some schools, some school districts, it all depends whether it's public or private, some of them allow homeschool kids to participate in their programs. I'm sorry, hold on, y'all. Something popped up. Okay. For the 3 years we paid for that, and then her senior year, her last year, she played for a private high school or a private school that went through, I think they went from preschool to 12th grade. She played for them. So but there were some other private schools that were close to us as well that did not allow homeschool kids to go, and there are a lot of public school districts that don't, but there are some that do. So when it comes to during the school season, athletics and clubs and organizations, it just depends on the school and it depends on the district. But club activities like club volleyball, club sports, AAU and USAA, they don't care what school you go to, whether it's private or public, because it's not associated with school. So it's the same. You pay to participate in those clubs. So if you have a child who's athletic, or a child at maybe some sort of community orchestra or whatever, it's the same. It doesn't matter. So they're not going to miss out on any of that. But like I said, depending on what it is, you're paid for, but we kind of pay for just about everything. I was amazed when my kids, both of my kids, one went to high school, public high school, one went homeschooled, and both of them we had to pay for them to go to driver's ed. Whereas when I was in high school, that was a class we got credit for. So, you have to pay for those things. And in terms of them getting the education and measuring it, like I said, they tend to do better because they have so much individualized and small group instruction on those tests. So to get a take the driving test in Oklahoma, where I'm from originally, my the kids had to have passed the eighth grade reading test. And so for my daughter, she had already taken the eighth grade reading test because I didn't start homeschooling her until the ninth grade. Could that test, everyone has to take the eighth grade reading test in order to take it. I'm not sure if adults have to do it, but I think if they're getting their permit or they're 16 and getting their license, then I know they all had to. Yeah. So as far as social skills go, let's say you have a child who's not interested in athletics, who's not interested in anything like choir or band or speech or field, just like any other kid, they're going to be social or they're not going to be social. Homeschooling is a social activity. It's not an individual thing. Everyone helps each other. You become part of a community. If they're um, doing, for example, like my daughter homeschool volleyball, everybody was being homeschooled. We got to know each other. We did things together. If you're part of a co-op or you're going to something like Echo that I was talking about, you're going to be connected to any type of other at the public school, because my daughter had friends that were in public school. She had friends that are in homeschool. She was involved in church, so you can still be involved in church if that's what you do. You can still be involved in the youth programs at the church, the things in your community. I was a campfire leader. I did campfire for them in high school, and she did that with her friends that she used to go to public school with. So nothing takes away from that whatsoever. So, if you're interested in homeschooling and you want to do it and you're really feeling that desire and that calling from God to do it, you can do it. You're going to find out what's required in your state. You're going to go to homeschool convention if you can. If you can't, you can try to connect with someone who has. You're going to connect with social groups on Facebook and online. You're going to find out what co-ops are out there that you can connect with. You're going to see if you don't do that, if there's some families you can work with. You're still going to be able to do athletics, whether it is a homeschool club. And let me tell you, homeschool kids get athletic scholarships. My daughter did. It doesn't matter because we've got all these club things going on that's really where people are kind of watching anyway. So you're going to be connecting with all of that. They're still going to get to do everything else they do. But yeah, someone's going to have to teach them, and you're going to figure out how that's going to be done. Is being done at home, whether you're paying for online school, whether you're teaching some of the curriculum and then you're having some of it taught with other parents and you're helping to do that. Whatever, you will find out. You will meet with people. You will find out what is exactly for me. Now, we can talk again once you started it, because you find out everything doesn't work for everybody. So some things, that's why you want to connect with different people and find out what different people did. If you're a working parent, what did different working parents do? If you're a single parent, what did different single parents do? If you struggle with any particular area, you're going to find out from different people what they do, and then you're going to try different things. So for me, at first, I started teaching my daughter. I kind of give her some and go and do some work. And at first she was not doing that work. I was not working. I need some more time in her face and checking her status a little sooner than when this stuff is due. So, everything is different for everybody. What works for each child is different. But some of the amazing pros of homeschooling is you decide how much time your child needs on anything. You decide if you're going to spend more time on a specific area and less on another area. If there's something that you feel like, I don't even need to teach that, even if it's in curriculum that you bought, you cannot do it. Or you can spend more time on it. So for me, I took geometry and I split it into two classes for her. So I did half of the course in one year and the other half in the other year. So on her transcript, then it says that it had like it had geometry 1 and then geometry 2. And then I gave her the proper credit for 1 geometry as far as the credits went for her toward graduation. So you can do that because we needed to spend more time on certain levels of math for her. And then there were certain things on the curriculum. So back up with some of the curriculum that I had. It was very expensive, but that mom that I told you guys that when her kids graduated, she gave me all of her curriculum. So a lot of the Becca that I had came from her. And some of it was just so into the weeds that I was like, nobody's going to remember that. Nobody cares about that. We're not going to do that. And remember, I'm telling you, this is the same child who did well on her ACT, who's done well in college. And another thing that I really wanted to make sure I did for her, and that she will tell you, and I'll have her comment after she's got a baby now who's 9 months old. Oh my gosh. He was 9 months yesterday. Oh wow, I just realized that. Yeah, my grandbaby. But so she can't always watch while things are happening, but I'll ask her to comment on this video and tell you, what she felt like she really got from it. But one thing I wanted her to really get, that I believe she did, was she learned how to study. She learned how to learn. And I really worked on that a lot. And it was to college, things weren't that difficult for her. I was really grateful for that and grateful for the experience. Wrap it up with this. Um, it is work to homeschool your child if you're doing some of the curriculum, just like it is for another parent. But that's not why you're doing it. You're doing it because you want what's best for your child. You want them to be safe. You want them to be able to learn at their pace, and less time where they don't. And it gives you so much flexibility. It builds confidence in your child and it grows in your relationship. Now, my daughter and I were both strong willed. We had, some challenges of, I want you to do this and I don't want to do this. And there's another way this can be done, Mom. But, we was that, and it was part of that transition. And she's very grateful to have been homeschooled. And my son is very grateful to have gone to public high school and graduated #2 in his class. So they had 2 totally different high school education experiences, and they are both successful in what they want out of life. And they are both grateful for those experiences. So if you like this video and you are interested in hearing anything else, want to hear other videos about this kind of thing for homeschooling, then just let me know in the comments below if you want to share any of your experiences and any tips and tricks. For others out there who are interested and just not sure if they can do that, then please do so in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. I want to end with how I do all of my normal videos, which are normally about planning and journaling and junk journaling with this. Please take care of your mind, body, and spirit, because when one area suffers, they all suffer. You guys continue to pray for me, and I'll continue to pray for you. And until next time, everyone, happy planning.